Hey everyone, there were already some insider reports last year claiming that the new Metro game is basically finished and fully playable. The campaign is reportedly complete, the content is all there, but for some reason the official reveal is still being held back. And honestly, that might not be a bad thing. If the devs are taking extra time to polish the game or improve performance, that's a smart move. Rushing out an unfinished product just leads to backlash. Look at what happened with Cyberpunk 2077. Or the rocky build-up to Stalker 2. No one wants another technical mess on day one. One theory that's been gaining traction is that 4A Games might be focusing on upgrading their engine again. Remember, they put a ton of work into the Metro Exodus Enhanced Edition, especially around ray tracing, lighting and shadows. It wasn't just a visual patch, it changed the way the whole game felt. It's possible they're trying to bring the same level of technical polish to the new entry before showing it off. That would make sense, especially if they are aiming to avoid the kinds of lighting and performance issues we've seen in early Stalker 2 footage, frame drops, weird shadow rendering, broken reflections, etc. If that's what's going on behind the scenes, then yeah, I'd much rather they take the time to get it right. So, what's the next Metro game really going to be? I'm not basing this on personal speculation, most of it comes from insider leaks that surfaced last year, which seemed fairly credible. According to those reports, 4A game might be shifting gears and returning to the franchise's roots, back to the underground tunnels, back to Moscow, back to claustrophobic survival horror vibe of the original game. At first glance, that might sound like a step backward. I mean, after Metro Exodus opened up the world with wide, explorable zones and gave us that feeling of freedom, why go back to dark, linear corridors where you barely see daylight? We've already had that experience in Metro 2033 and Last Light. If I want to crawl through tunnels with a flashlight and a gas mask, I can just replay those. Exodus changes the formula in a good way. The open-air environments, the freedom to approach missions your way, the verticality, it felt like the series had finally evolved. So, the idea of going back to being underground for the most of the game, personally, I'm not sold. That said, I get the appeal. A return to the tunnels could bring back that thick atmosphere, those terrifying ambushes, the desperation. Maybe it's not about going backward, it's about refining what worked in the past while combining it with what made Exodus great. There's also talk that a new faction could rise in the Baikal region, potentially kicking off a fresh conflict, maybe even a civil war scenario among survivors. But here's a more exciting angle. What if Metro breaks out of Russia entirely? That's something fans have been dreaming about ever since the Sam Story DLC. That was one of the best pieces of content in the whole franchise. Watching Sam try to make his way home to America and realizing the apocalypse didn't just stop at the Russian border. The idea of setting a full game in a ruined US, maybe following Sam, maybe introducing new characters, opens the door to new aesthetics, new cultures, new types of threats. We've already seen what Metro looks in snow, ash and forest. Imagine it in a crumbling American suburbs, flooded cities, deserts, or even the overgrown ruins of Washington, D.C. That would be Metro, but reimagined on a global scale, and I think the series needs that level of expansion. Don't get me wrong, I still want closure for Artyom, Anna and the crew. Their journey in Exodus felt personal and meaningful. I'd love to know what happens to their colony at Baikal, how they rebuild, and whether they ever reconnect with the rest of the world. But the world of Metro has grown too big for just one tunnel system. It's time the series started thinking global. Another big thing we shouldn't overlook is that the next Metro will reportedly include a full-fledged multiplayer mode. That's a first for the series, and honestly, it's got people curious. Metro has always been a single-player story-driven experience, so how do you even make that work in a multiplayer setting without losing the tension and atmosphere the games are known for? That's part of what makes this next game feel like a major shift. It's not just a sequel, it's shaping up to be a full-on next-gen reinvention. According to insiders, 4A Games isn't just working on the story campaign, they are also reworking the core gameplay systems, the shooting mechanics, the engine itself, and even adding new features that weren't possible in previous titles. And speaking of the engine, they are going all in on ray tracing, like fully built around it. That means no support for last-gen consoles, and likely no support for older GPUs that can't handle RT. It's a bold move, but maybe not the most practical one. Not every player has access to cutting-edge hardware, there. And let's be real, there are games from 10 years ago that still outperform some next-gen RT-heavy titles when it comes to art direction, shadows, and even basic lighting. So while ray tracing is cool on paper, it's not a silver bullet. And if Metro wants to stand out visually, it's going to need more than just flashy tech. It needs art direction, atmosphere, and good old-fashioned design. Still, I'm optimistic. Metro Exodus was a huge leap from the earlier games in terms of gameplay, gunplay, pacing, and cinematic quality. The first game, Metro 2033, felt experimental at times, rogue around the edges, clunky shooting, some awkward systems, but Exodus brought the series to a whole new level. It wasn't perfect, sure. The aiming could be weird, bullet trajectories sometimes felt off, and hit direction was inconsistent, but it was immersive, bold, and technically impressive. I'm hoping this next entry built on that, tightens the gunplay, makes the mechanics more responsive, and delivers the definitive Metro experience, one that feels like the culmination of everything 4A Games has learned over the years. At this point, all that's left is for them to finally announce the damn thing. Give us the first trailer, show off some gameplay, let us see what this new Metro really looks like in motion. If it lands up to even half of the potential fans are expecting, it could easily be the best in the series. Gameplay is great and all, but let's be real, Metro has always been about the story. That's the heart of the series. Deep, character-driven narratives, intense personal journeys, and cinematic set pieces that stick with you. And from what we've heard, the narrative in Metro 4 might just be the strongest yet. Why? Because Dmitry Glukhovsky, the original author of the novels, and the creative mind behind the franchise, is back on writing duties. According to multiple sources, the script for the next game is already complete, and if his track record is anything to go by, we are in for something dark, emotional, and absolutely wild. I'm fully expecting a story that not only raises the stakes, but also sets the stage for future sequels. Exodus may have felt like the end of the journey to some, but it really wasn't. That was just the end of the chapter, not the whole book. Artyom and the crew reached Baikal, sure, but that's just the beginning of building a new life. They still have to establish a colony, relocate survivors, and figure out how to live on the surface in a world that's still dangerous, unpredictable, and very much alive. This is where Metro 4 could really shine, picking up right where Exodus left off and showing what survival looks like when you are trying to rebuild, not just stay alive. That opens up the door to exploring new regions, meeting new factions, and potentially expanding the world far beyond Russia. And that brings us to something I'm really hoping for. More content centered around Sam's story. The Sam Story DLC was one of the best things 4A Games has ever put out. It took us to Vladivostok, introducing American elements, and hinted at the larger global scale of the apocalypse. If Metro 4 leans into that and actually brings us to the United States, or at least follows Sam's path, it could give the series a much-needed shake-up in setting and tone, while still keeping the gritty, grounded vibe fans love. And let's not forget DLCs. Metro Exodus proved that standalone story expansions work in this universe. The two colonels and Sam's story both added real depth to the world and gave side characters room to breathe. I wouldn't be surprised if Metro 4 launches with a full campaign and plans for future DLCs that spotlight individual characters, side missions, or parallel storylines. That's honestly a smart way to expand the lore without dragging down the main narrative. Some people argue that Exodus wrapped everything up. I disagree. It offered closure for that arc, but left the door wide open. There's still so much more to tell about the survivors, their efforts to rebuild, their personal goals, and their lingering emotional wounds. A lot of the characters in Exodus even mentioned wanting to return to their old lives, to go back to the cities or find people they left behind. Those threads are beginning to be followed up. In the end, I think Metro 4 has the chance to be more than just another entry. It could be the beginning of a whole new phase for the franchise, one that's global, emotionally richer, and technically more ambitious than anything 4A Games has done before. The potential is enormous. Now we just need to see if they deliver. Thanks for watching. For more updates on the Metro 4 or other gaming content, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel. Until then, stay safe.